I don't know about you guys, but the year 2022 seems like it's the fastest year in history. It seemed like it was just last month or 2 months ago, I was doing the same video for the year 2021. And here we are doing the top 10 bikes that we tested in the year 2022. Now, it seems that this year we got a lot of adventure bikes. I don't know if there's just more ADVs that arrived in Philippine shores or if I'm just getting old. Yeah, I prefer to think that there's more ADVs that arrived in Philippine shores. Anyway, here are the top 10 bikes MotoDeal tested in the year 2022. Now, I want to stress that out because some of these bikes that we tested are actually from the year 2020. So these are not the new bikes in 2022. These are what we tested in 2022. Anyway, let's get the show started. First up, we have the honorable mentions, and we're going to start with the first and only electric bike that we ever had here on the show. It is the Horween EK3. Now, this is the future. All of these bikes are going to go this direction. I don't know when, but it's going to happen sometime in the future. And this is the first step. Now, is the Philippines ready for it just yet? Not yet. But this is one of the things that's going to be happening, I do believe, in the very near future. And I do love the way this Horween looks. I think it's absolutely adorable and deserves to have a shot at the top 10, but did not quite make it because the Philippines is just not ready for it, in my opinion. Next up is the BMW 850 GS. Now, this is not just the younger, smaller sibling of the 1250. In fact, this is a very capable ADV. And if you ask me, if I were to choose one bike between the 850 and the 1250 to take off-road, I would actually choose the 850. Anyway, let's go to the top 10. And the criteria for the top 10 include the following: performance, appeal, value, comfort, and can this bike be used on the daily? At number 10, we have the Yamaha Sniper 155. Now, if this bike is good enough for Kyle Paz, it should be good enough for pretty much all of us. Because this bike has it all. I mean, I understand why this is the king of the underbones, right? It has the performance. It has the appeal. Yes, it is absolutely dailyable. It has the value and it's also very comfortable. Where it does fall short, if you ask me, is that it doesn't have any storage space. So you're going to have to put a top box or something or carry a backpack with you riding it around the city if you want to use it to get some errands done. But everything else this bike has. In fact, this is also kind of what got Kyle Paz a seat into the higher displacement bikes out there when he's racing in Europe. So it is one of those nice stepping stone bikes to bigger and better bikes, especially if you're into riding on the track. At number 9, we have the Royal Enfield Scram 411. Now, this bike I absolutely fell in love with because it's the bike that got me through the Himalayas. I was riding around some of the roughest terrain in the world, and this bike got me through it. Now, is it the best bike out there? Is it the most comfortable? No, definitely not. And it's kind of just like the Himalayan with a little bit of a smaller front tire, but it does look a lot better. It does have fairly good performance. It is great value for money. Yes, you can take it out on the daily here around the city. The comfort is okay. It's not great, but it's still more comfortable than some of the bikes out there. So I just grew a relationship with this bike because of what it went through with me on the Himalayas trip. Now at number 8, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate when I say what bike made it to the number 8 spot. Because a lot of people are going to say, this should be number 1. How can you put this all the way back in number 8? This bike is the best naked bike out there. And yes, perhaps that is all true. I'm talking about the Ducati Street Fighter V4. Now, this bike has all the performance in the world. It definitely does. I've taken this bike on the road, on some twisties, on the track. And believe me, this thing is a beast of a machine and probably deserves to be a little bit higher on the list. However, when you consider that does it have the value? Yeah, it depends, right? That's a relative thing. If you got deep pockets, then value is definitely nothing. Is it comfortable? In my opinion, it's comfortable enough for the type of bike it is, but where it does fall short for me is that it's not exactly a bike that I would take on the daily. I think when you're stuck in traffic and you're trying to maneuver yourself here in Manila, you're going to start feeling the heat of the engine, and that's kind of where the discomfort comes in. The seating position, because it is a naked, is fine, but because we live in the Philippines, or I live in the Philippines, and I'm basing it on my experience riding it around the city, not the most comfortable bike out there. But of course, when you're out of the twisties, when you're on the track, I mean, it's fantastic. This thing is an absolute beast of a machine. And don't get me wrong, I would love to own one, but it is also a little bit on the pricey side. But the reason why it's back at number 8 instead of a little bit higher is probably because of the discomfort, because of more the conditions that living in the NCR gives me than the bike itself. So it's not really the bike's fault. It's really more of the situational thing. At number 7, we have the CF Moto CLX Sport. Now this bike pretty much does check all the boxes. I think it has a lot of appeal. I love the way the bike looks. It definitely has very good value for money. The performance is just right, not great, not bad. It's just there somewhere in the middle. And I do believe it does have a lot of appeal. I love the way this thing looks. I mean, it's of all the CF Motos, this is probably my favorite looking one. And it's just in the sweet spot when it comes to the dailyable ride, right? It's not super uncomfortable. It's not super comfortable. It's just there, right there in the middle. So it just, in my opinion, at least for the ergonomics, for somebody who's about 5'6", that's probably something that to consider also when you're buying this bike. It does come short a little bit in terms of if you want to push it more in open roads and on the racetrack, but everything else, this thing does just okay. Nothing too great, nothing bad, but just okay. But the best thing about it is definitely the value for money. At number 6, we have the Peugeot Django. Probably my favorite scooter that I tested out this year. Now, if you know me, or if you've been watching this channel, you know how much I love classic-looking machines, and this definitely has that vibe to it, right? Especially in the blue and white colorway. No, I'm not from Ateneo. But the blue and white colorway makes this bike look special. And it's comfortable, it's definitely dailyable, it's something that has good value, and it's also a bike that has decent performance. Nothing will jump out at you, but it's really more about enjoying the comfort of riding a scooter in the city, and something that's a little bit different, right? It's not something when you pull up to a cafe, it's pretty much the same as everything else there. It is going to stand out a little bit, and that's kind of what I enjoy about the Django as well. And just a little bit of a bonus, I do love the name Django. You know, it's kind of like a nice name for a bounty hunter or maybe a pool player. So we're halfway through the list, but before we proceed to the top 5, we do want to say thank you to all the viewers out there who made 2022 a very special one. We have viewers from all over the world, not just here in the Philippines, but believe it or not, we have a lot of viewers from India. Hi guys! We have a lot of viewers from the States, from Europe, from around Southeast Asia. So thank you very much for tuning in to the MotoDeal channel. For those of you out there who wonder, ba't hindi ako nagtatagalog masyado? Well, for 2 reasons. Hindi ako magaling magtagalog, and number 2, we also have a lot of viewers from different parts of the world. At number 5, we have the 2020 Suzuki Katana. Now, some of you are asking, what? You're putting the Katana on top of the Street Fighter? Well, let me explain, right? I love the look of the Katana. I just absolutely love the styling. Yes, I like the styling of the Katana more than that of the Ducati Street Fighter. Now, the performance is all there as well. I mean, we're talking about a bike that's got, you know, sport bike DNA, but it's really meant for the street, for the road. Now, the one thing that I didn't like about it too much is that it's got a little bit of a small tank, 12 liters. I wish it was at least 14. Of course, I wish it also had a quick shifter. And another thing that I kind of wish that the Katana had, maybe in a newer version, it would have a TFT screen. Now, I don't mind the screen that it has right now, but it is a little bit busy for me. It's something that when I was out on the expressway and I was riding at speed, I won't let them say what speed, but I was riding at speed, I had to look a little bit at the dash and trying to figure out where, how fast I was going. And when I realized how fast I was going, I slowed down. But I can forgive all of those shortcomings because I absolutely love the bike, because of the way it makes me feel when I'm riding it. I imagine myself to be, in one of those 80s TV shows or cartoons that I grew up watching. It just brings me back to that time. And whatever, I'm a little bit of a nostalgic fan when it comes to these bikes, and this bike has all the performance in the world. And it does also qualify for a daily ride. I think it's good enough for that. I think it's got pretty good value for money. It has more than enough performance. I mean, this bike just checks pretty much all the boxes for me. At number 4, we have the Ducati Desert X. This is a bike that I tested out in Italy, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Now, even before I jumped on the bike, I already loved it. I already saw the bike, I was like, wow, that is a beautiful machine. And when I got to use it, I loved it even more. The bike is an absolute dream. It performs well on the road, it performs well on the off-road, it's got riding aids, it's got all the tech that I need, it's got pretty much everything I want in a bike, but it does have some shortcomings. The rider, me. I'm just not tall enough to use this bike on a daily, especially here in the traffic in Metro Manila. If I was out if I lived in the countryside, there was a little bit more open roads, sure. I mean, I think this would, jump up higher on the list. But because I would have to deal with city traffic, it comes up a little bit short, because at 5'6", it's not that easy for me to reach the ground, which I have to do in order to maneuver the bike through the city traffic into the open roads out on the expressways and on some light trails. Plus, if there was another thing about it that's bothers me a little bit, is that it's a little bit on the expensive side for a 900cc motorcycle. Yes, again, that's a relative situation, right? Not everybody will think this bike is expensive. Also, not everybody will think this bike is cheap. So when you take things into consider, all these different things, we're talking about a bike that's 1,600,000 Philippine pesos. That's not cheap. You'd expect the bike to have a little bit more power. But all that aside, it's a fantastic bike. I wish I had one. I really do. Plus, if it's good enough for Ryan F9 to sell his soul to be a Ducatista, it should be good enough for me. So here we are. We have arrived at the podium of the top 10 bikes that we tested in the year 2022. And if you've been watching this channel, you know how much I love, and I still love, cafe racers. Cafe racers for me is just my ideal style of bike. It's my ideal look. It's my ideal feel. I just love the way, the bike, when it sits there, I love looking at it. I mean, it's just really more me. And when I think about the ultimate cafe racer, well, really only one bike comes to mind, and that's the Triumph Thruxton RS. Now, the Thruxton RS definitely has the performance. I mean, this is a bike that you can enjoy on the twisties, you can enjoy on the track. It's still very dailyable. It has all the appeal in the world. At least for me, it has all the appeal in the world. The comfort, not quite there. It is a cafe racer, so don't expect it to be super comfortable. But it's not so bad that you can't use it on a daily. It's actually still okay. And the value, it's actually a little bit on the pricey side, if you ask me, but I just love everything else about it. So it does fall short on a couple of things, but the couple of things that it falls short on, it's really something that's subjective or relative depending on who's going to buy the bike. I think it's a great buy, especially if you're into these type of bikes, and if you can afford these type of bikes, it's definitely something that you should consider. So we are down to the top 2. And for those of you who know me personally, you will probably laugh when I tell you the top 2 bikes that we tested in the year 2022. But here we go. At number 2, we have a bike that's kind of similar to the Desert X. Maybe has less power, has less riding aids, has less, well, about almost a third of the price. I'm talking about the Yamaha Tenere 700. Now this bike, if you ask me, in the top 10 list, probably the best value for money. Now, this is a bike that, as I mentioned, it doesn't have riding aids, it doesn't have tech, it doesn't have the premium feel of a Desert X, but that's also part of the joy of the bike. You're going back to basics with the Tenere 700. It's a bike that you can take out on the expressway, get yourself into some trails, get through the trails feeling like you're Paul Tares, get back on the expressway and go home. You don't have to put the bike on a pickup or another car and bring it over to some trails. You can actually ride there and it will still perform okay on the expressway. Not great on the expressway, but it will perform okay. And it's a bike that I absolutely love. The CP2 engine, one of my favorite engines in the world, a more than capable machine. And I do believe that the Tenere 700 is gonna have a rabid fan base for years to come. It's gonna be one of those classic bikes out there that people are gonna want. In fact, it's a bike that it's not that easy to get. There's so many people out there looking for a T7 that can't find one around the world. Believe me, I see the comments. A lot of people out there from all over the world are looking for a T7 to purchase, and there just aren't any for them to buy. It's understandable why. It's a fantastic motorcycle. I do recommend it. Okay, so we're down to our number one, the cream of the crop that rose to the top of the top 10 list of the bikes that we tested out in the year 2022. It is a bike that I admit I never thought I would actually own. It's a bike that when I went to Italy for the World Ducati Week, I was kind of brainwashed to believe that it was the best machine out there. But when I did test out the bike earlier this year, even before I went to Italy for the World Ducati Week, I actually fell in love with it already. Because it's a bike that performs fantastic on the road. It's a bike that can perform even on the track, on some twisties, pretty much everywhere. There are people around the world who prefer this bike for their off-road machine. Of course, they just have to change the tires. I'm talking, of course, about the Ducati Multistrada V4. Now, this bike has all the performance in the world. It's a bike that has all the appeal in the world. It's also very comfortable. Yes, weirdly enough, it actually can be used as a daily. I actually use this bike on a daily basis. Now, is it super easy to maneuver yourself through city traffic? It's not great, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. And considering that all the positives that this bike has, the one negative thing about it is really the fuel consumption. Because it's not the most fuel efficient bike out there, but it's also because of how enjoyable it is to twist that throttle. I mean, so I get about 15 kilometers per liter with this bike, but you could probably get closer to 18 if I wasn't just enjoying the bike a little bit too much. But that's one of the things about this bike that I absolutely love. It is just so much fun. I enjoy it and I'm comfortable while I'm enjoying it, because the dream really is to have a sport bike type of performance with an ADV comfort. And that's what the MTS is. At least for me, in my opinion, it is my favorite bike that I tried out in the year 2022. Well, guys, there you have it. I mean, I still can't believe the year 2022 is over. This is definitely the fastest year in the history of years. And, you know, it was a special year. We did try a couple of things a little bit different here in MotoDeal, having some guest riders with the likes of course, Mark Nelson, Sam YG, Catrice Karolf. And we also did a little bit of traveling videos. So why don't you let us know in the comment section if there's anything else that you guys want us to try out. Would you want to see a little bit more reviews? Do you want to see more travel, more guests? And if you want to see more guests, who? Let us know who you want us to guest on the channel, and we're going to do our best to try and get them on the show and try and give you guys more about what you want. So yes, we did start MotoDeal as really primarily just a motorcycle review channel, and that still is what it is. But when we do bring in guests, it's going to be more about about them and also about the bikes. And then, of course, when we go out on some trips, on some motorcycle adventures, we're still going to be more focused on how the bike is handling certain situations, and not just going to different sites and going to different locations and trying out different stuff. I want to stress out that I do not consider myself a vlogger. I am really more of a host. I know Zach Lucero said the same thing, but I kind of am in the same wavelength as Sir Zach when he says that. Because the vloggers, with all due respect, I respect them so much that the vloggers are really more, it's really more about them. It's really more about their experience with what it is they're doing with the videos. Ours is really more about the bike or about the guest or about the situations that we're in. So that's the kind of the backbone of the MotoDeal channel, and we want to let you guys know, or we want to hear from you guys on what else you want to see. And do you agree with the list? Do you hate the list? Do you think I'm crazy to put the Street Fighter at number 8 instead of closer to the top? Let us know in the comment section below. For more information about other motorcycles out there, log on to www.motodeal.com.ph. This has been Gino Rufino. Till next time, behind the desk. Happy New Year, everyone.